Coming live from the Tivoli Met Radio studio here on Auraria campus, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for listening to All Sports through Met Radio on mymetmedia.com, live every Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. This is your host Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I am going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, college football, college basketball, and boxing. Before I start the show, I hope you all had a great week. To start off with Major League Baseball, Derek Jeter was a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he got elected into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Derek Jeter fell one vote shy of being anonymously elected into the Hall of Fame after having 396 out of 397 votes and a 99.7 percentage. Since 2000, Derek Jeter is the sixth player to be elected as a first ballot Hall of Famer to play for one team during his entire career. Derek Jeter is a 5-time World Series champion, a 14-time All-Star, the 2000 World Series MVP, the 1996 American League Rookie of the Year. He is a 5-time Gold Glove Award winner and a 5-time Silver Slugger Award winner. In his final year on the Hall of Fame ballot, Larry Walker was elected into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Larry Walker became the 7th Major League Baseball Hall of Fame player to get elected into Cooperstown in the final year of his name being on the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. Larry Walker is the first Rockies player to be elected to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Derek Jeter and Larry Walker were elected into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and they are the class of 2020 being inducted into Cooperstown. So first of all, I want to say congrats to both Derek Jeter and Larry Walker on having a great career in Major League Baseball and being elected into Cooperstown. They are Major League Baseball Hall of Famers, and they are the class of 2020 that will be inducted into Cooperstown this year. Derek Jeter is one of the best players to ever play at the shortstop position. He's also one of the best players to ever play for the Yankees. With the type of career that Derek Jeter had in Major League Baseball and for the Yankees, there's no doubt that Derek Jeter was a future Hall of Famer, but also a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, Derek Jeter was almost the second player that would have been elected anonymously into the Hall of Fame. Last year, Mariano Rivera was elected anonymously into the Hall of Fame, and he got 100% of the votes. Derek Jeter was only one vote shy of getting 100% of the votes and being the second anonymous player elected into the Hall of Fame. I'm curious to see who was the one person that decided Derek Jeter wasn't a Hall of Famer or a first ballot Hall of Famer. But Derek Jeter still got elected into the Hall of Fame, and he is now a Hall of Famer. Larry Walker had a great career in Major League Baseball with the teams that he played for, especially for the Montreal Expos and for the Rockies. The 10 years that Larry Walker played for the Rockies, Larry Walker was definitely one of the best players to ever wear a Rockies uniform. Larry Walker is also the first player to be in the Hall of Fame that played for the Rockies. Larry Walker was also the first player in Rockies history to win National League MVP back in 1997. With the type of career that Larry Walker had in Major League Baseball with the teams that he played for, but especially for the Rockies for those 10 years, there's no doubt that Larry Walker was a Hall of Famer, even though he had to wait the 10 years and wait till the final year to get elected into the Hall of Fame. It was definitely worth the wait for Larry Walker. And now with Larry Walker being in the Hall of Fame, going into the future, since Todd Helton's name is on the Hall of Fame ballot, with Larry Walker in the Hall of Fame, I could definitely see Todd Helton making his way into Cooperstown going into the future. We're going to have to wait and see when that is, but I would definitely see Todd Helton in the Hall of Fame with the type of career that he had. And he also played for the Rockies his entire career. And if Larry Walker can get into the Hall of Fame, Todd Helton can get in the Hall of Fame. Even if he has to wait all the way to the end, I do see Todd Helton getting into the Hall of Fame. Now, all the players that are eligible to make it into Cooperstown are on the ballot for 10 years. You have 10 years to get inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. After those 10 years, if you do not get inducted into the Hall of Fame, then your name comes off the ballot. Also, when your name appears on the Hall of Fame ballot, you need 75% to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it doesn't matter how many players gets inducted into the Hall of Fame every year. As long as you get over 75%, you'll get inducted into the Hall of Fame. But if your name appears on the ballot and you cannot get 5%, then your name automatically comes off the ballot that year. Unfortunately, this year on the Hall of Fame ballot, there were a few players that did not get over 5%, so their name will no longer be on the Hall of Fame ballot. But there was also many players that could have made it into the Hall of Fame, but they just didn't get to that 75%. Derek Jeter had 99.7%. He was only one vote shy of having 100%, so he definitely got into the Hall of Fame. Larry Walker barely made it over the 75%. He got 76.5%, so he made it into the Hall of Fame. Kurt Zuckerman was another name that could have got into the Hall of Fame. He barely missed it with 70%, but I definitely see Kurt Zuckerman getting into the Hall of Fame next year or in the next few years. The next closest players that could have got into the Hall of Fame was Roger Clemens at 61% and Barry Bonds at 60.7%. Also, Todd Helton got 29%. So going into the next few years, Todd Helton and all the other players that were eligible that were below the 60% that Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds had, some of these individual players' percentage could definitely move up in the Hall of Fame ballot going into the next few years. Some of these names are new to the ballot, and some of these names have been on the ballot for the last few years, so we're going to have to wait and see if their percentage goes up next year and going into the future. But the next closest players that could make it into the Hall of Fame is Kurt Zuckerman, Roger Clemens, and Barry Bonds. So we're going to have to wait and see if they get into the Hall of Fame next year or going into the future. The 2020 Hall of Fame induction ceremony will take place on July 26 in Cooperstown. The Rockies announced they will be retiring Larry Walker's number on Sunday, April 19th against the Cardinals. The Rockies-Cardinals series from April 17th to April 19th will be Retired 33 weekend at Coors Field. So Larry Walker's number 33 jersey will be retired on Sunday, April 19th. Rockies general manager Jeff Burchett announced Nolan Arenado will not be traded before the start of the 2020 season. But Nolan Arenado made it clear that he is unhappy with the Rockies organization. Nolan Arenado stated there is a lot of disrespect from people that I don't want to be a part of. You ask what I thought of Jeff's quotes, and I say I don't care what people say around there. There is a lot of disrespect. Also, in the last few days, Nolan Arenado had another statement, and he also stated that it's uncomfortable for him to state that, and that it's out of his comfort zone. Nolan Arenado is very private on his life. He doesn't even have social media accounts, and he definitely has a private life, and he doesn't express what he does off the field or during the off season. So Nolan Arenado definitely wanted to make it clear to the Rockies organization, to the fans, and to General Manager Jeff Burchett that he feels disrespected. Going back to the winter meetings, the Rockies have been in talks with many teams about a possible Nolan Arenado trade, but at the end of the day, the Rockies did not want to do what they did with the Troy Tulowitzki and Ubaldo Jimenez trade, so they lined up not trading Nolan Arenado because they just didn't see any good deals coming out of it. No matter what team it was, there were definitely a few teams that were interested, but none of those teams were able to offer something great. So as of right now, the Rockies are holding on to Nolan Arenado with only a few weeks of the offseason left before spring training begins in the next few weeks. But with this tension between Nolan Arenado and General Manager Jeff Burchett, there's still a possibility that Nolan Arenado can be traded because he feels disrespected by the Rockies organization. But the Rockies do not want to trade Nolan Arenado because he is one of the best players on the Rockies roster. He's also one of the best players to ever play for the Rockies, but he's also one of the best third basemen in Rockies history and in Major League Baseball. So trading Nolan Arenado away could be a bad decision for the Rockies, since Nolan Arenado is like a once-in-a-generation player. And a Nolan Arenado type player does not pop up in the minor leagues or through the draft all the time. So if the Rockies got rid of Nolan Arenado, it could be a disaster for the Rockies because there's really no other player in the Rockies minor league system that is like Nolan Arenado. And there's really no other player in any other Major League Baseball team system like Nolan Arenado. So you just don't want to give him up for nothing. And you just don't want to give him away when he's a once-in-a-generation player and he's also a franchise player for your team. But with the Rockies not making it into the postseason and having a bad season in 2019, the Rockies definitely want to try to make it into the postseason in 2020 with Nolan Arenado, and they also want to have a better 2020 season. And it's all going to start with Nolan Arenado. So hopefully by time opening day comes and throughout spring training, Nolan Arenado will still be a Rockies player. But with Nolan Arenado just signing this new contract last offseason, after the 2021 season, Nolan Arenado does have the option to opt out of his deal and be traded. So it's all going to come down to how the Rockies play in 2020 and in 2021. The Rockies are only going to get 2 more chances if Nolan Arenado is still on the team. And if they don't have winning seasons and they don't make it to the postseason, Nolan Arenado will demand a trade, or he is going to be traded. And it's all going to be because the Rockies did not have great seasons in 2020 or in 2021. But if the Rockies want to be successful going into the future, it's all going to start with Rockies general manager Jeff Burchett. And so far this offseason, the Rockies organization and general manager Jeff Burchett have not done anything to make this Rockies team better through free agency. But at the end of the 2019 season, They stated that it was an off year for the Rockies due to the amount of injuries to star players, and a lot of the star players didn't play to their potential. So we're going to have to wait and see if the Rockies are better in 2020, since it was an off year in 2019. But if the Rockies are not better in 2020, the Rockies really need to fire General Manager Jeff Burchett, which they should have already done that a long time ago. And the only way I see the Rockies being successful going into the future is by firing General Manager Jeff Burchett, which I likely see the Rockies not doing. And when they replace personnel within the organization, they always bring someone within the organization to replace that individual. If the Rockies want to be successful going into the future, they need to bring someone from the outside. So we're going to have to wait and see what the Rockies do in 2020 and going into the future. The Mets and manager Carlos Beltran have agreed to part ways. So after this scandal with the Astros ended up firing their general manager and their manager. The Red Sox fired their manager, and the Mets parted way with their manager, Carlos Beltran. But going back to this scandal with the Astros, this scandal with the Astros was only supposed to be with personnel or with their management within their organization. This wasn't supposed to involve players on the 2017 team. But because Carlos Beltran this offseason became the manager of the Mets, and he was a player for the Astros going back to 2017, the reason why I think the Mets ended up parting ways with Carlos Beltran was because he was a player with the Astros back in 2017, and also because he was supposed to be the manager of the Mets in 2020 and going into the future. And after they saw the Astros firing their general manager, but especially their manager, and the Red Sox fired their manager, the Mets decided they had to follow the tradition. So they ended up having to part ways with Carlos Beltran and hiring a new manager. So this scandal with the Astros wasn't supposed to involve players. We're going to have to wait and see what happens going down the road. But the Mets ended up parting ways with Carlos Beltran, and Carlos Beltran will not be the manager of the Mets. But the Astros are still being investigated for their part going back to 2017. The Red Sox are being investigated for their part going back to 2018. Both the Astros and the Red Sox won the World Series. The Astros won the World Series in 2017, and the Red Sox won the World Series in 2018. Major League Baseball stated they will not strip the World Series titles from the Astros and the Red Sox, but they are investigating the Astros and the Red Sox. This investigation is only supposed to be within the management of the Astros and the Red Sox, and it shouldn't involve players. So we're going to have to wait and see what Major League Baseball does with this investigation with the Astros and the Red Sox going into the next few weeks. The Mets hired Luis Rojas to be their next manager. The Giants hired the first female coach in Major League Baseball history. Alyssa Newking became the first female coach on the Major League Baseball team staff. Alyssa Newking will be an assistant coach under manager Gabe Kapler. Marcell Osuna and the Braves have agreed to a one-year contract. Felix Hernandez and the Braves have agreed to a minor league contract. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NFL football. The NFC goes against the AFC in the 2020 NFL Pro Bowl on Sunday, January 26th in Orlando. The 2020 Pro Bowl Skills Showdown is on Thursday, January 23rd. For the 8th time in 9 seasons, Von Miller is headed to the 2020 Pro Bowl. Von Miller is tied for the second most Pro Bowl selections in Broncos franchise history. Courtland Sutton was added to the 2020 Pro Bowl roster for the AFC. For the first time since 2008, Tom Brady wasn't selected to participate in the 2020 Pro Bowl. The Ravens led the NFL with 12 Pro Bowl players selected to participate in the 2020 Pro Bowl, which is tied for the most Pro Bowl players selected to the Pro Bowl from a single team. The Giants hired Jason Garrett to be their offensive coordinator. Titans offensive tackle Dennis Kelly was the heaviest player in NFL history to catch a playoff touchdown at 321 pounds. Derrick Henry has the most rushing yards in any 8-game stretch in NFL history. To finish off the 2019 season, Derrick Henry rushed for 1,342 yards over his last 9 games. Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 against the 49ers in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers has a 1-3 NFC Championship record. Aaron Rodgers has the most touchdown passes in Packers playoff history. Joe Montana and Patrick Mahomes are the only 2 players in NFL history to have 250-plus passing yards, 3-plus passing touchdowns, and 50-plus rushing yards in multiple career playoff games. Patrick Mahomes passed Dan Marino for the most passing touchdowns in a player's first 35 career games in NFL history, which includes the regular season and the playoffs. For the first time in 50 years, the Chiefs are the AFC champions. This is the Chiefs' first Super Bowl appearance since the 1969 season. Raheem Mostert is the only player in NFL history with 200-plus rushing yards and 4-plus rushing touchdowns in a playoff game. Raheem Mostert was cut by 6 different NFL teams before he was added to the 49ers roster. During the 49ers-Packers NFC Championship game, Raheem Mostert had a record-breaking NFC Championship performance. Raheem Mostert had 29 carries for 220 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns during the 49ers-Packers game in the championship weekend, which is the most rushing yards in a single playoff game in 49ers history. Raheem Mostert had 14 carries for 160 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, which is the most first-half rushing yards in a playoff game since 1964. The 49ers joined the 1988 Bengals and the 1999 Rams as the 3rd team to reach the Super Bowl after winning 4 or fewer games the previous season. Since 2009, at least one quarterback from Texas or California has represented a team on championship weekend. This will be the first time since 2002 that the quarterback representing the AFC in the Super Bowl will not be Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, or Joe Flacco. Patrick Mahomes becomes the first quarterback from the AFC's new generation to appear in the Super Bowl. The teams that have never won a Super Bowl title includes the Cardinals, Panthers, Titans, Lions, Falcons, Bengals, Texans, Chargers, Bills, Browns, Jaguars, and Vikings. This week is the NFL Pro Bowl. So right now I'm going to update you with the NFL Championship Weekend final scores. I'm also going to tell you the Super Bowl 54 matchup. So looking at the NFC Championship Weekend, here are the Championship Weekend final scores. The Chiefs beat the Titans 35-24 in the AFC Championship game. The 49ers beat the Packers 37-20 in the NFC Championship game. So looking at the AFC Championship game between the Chiefs and the Titans, the Chiefs definitely had the advantage of winning this game, since they had home field advantage throughout the AFC in the playoffs, since the Ravens got knocked out in the divisional weekend. And with the games going through Kansas City, the Chiefs definitely had the home field advantage, especially in the AFC Championship game. After the Chiefs lost to the Patriots in last year's AFC Championship game in Kansas City, the Chiefs definitely did not want to lose against the Titans in this year's AFC Championship game in Kansas City. In this year's AFC Championship game, the Chiefs definitely did not disappoint. The Chiefs were able to beat the Titans in the AFC Championship game. And unfortunately for the Titans, their underdog playoff run came to an end in the AFC Championship game in Kansas City against the Chiefs. The Titans were not able to handle the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Some of the reasons why the Titans were not able to win the AFC Championship game was because it was in Kansas City. They had to play the AFC Championship game on the road. The Titans defense just could not handle everything that Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense can do, especially Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs offense definitely showed up in the AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes showed up, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. They all had big games against the Titans. That Titans defense could not handle the Chiefs offense. The Titans offense started playing great at the beginning of the game in the first quarter, and it almost looked like the Titans were going to continue their underdog playoff run against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. But after that first half for the AFC Championship game, the Titans could not handle the Chiefs in the second half of the AFC Championship game, and they just started falling apart. They were not playing the way they did in the divisional round against the Ravens and in the wild card round against the Patriots. The Chiefs were just too much to handle. The Chiefs defense was playing great against that Titans offense. They were stopping Ryan Tannehill from having a big game. Ryan Tannehill definitely had to throw the football a lot. It was too much for him to handle. They were stopping that passing game in the second half of the game, but they were also stopping Derrick Henry from having a big game. Derrick Henry had a big game against the Patriots in the wild card weekend and against the Ravens in the divisional weekend. But the Chiefs were not going to let Derrick Henry have a big game against him. Since the Chiefs were able to stop Derrick Henry from having a big game, that's one of the reasons why the Chiefs were able to beat the Titans in this game. Unfortunately, the season came to an end for the Titans in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, but I do want to say congrats to the Titans on turning their season around, having a great 2019 season, especially in the second half of the season, having a great playoff run all the way to the AFC Championship game, especially with Derrick Henry in that Titans offense. And I want to say congrats to Derrick Henry on having a great season with the Titans. The Chiefs landed up winning the AFC Championship game, and they are moving on to Super Bowl 54. So I also want to say congrats to the Chiefs on having a great season. Now looking at the NFC Championship game between the 49ers and the Packers, the 49ers had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the NFC. All the games went through San Francisco. The 49ers hosted the NFC Championship game And throughout the entire regular season, the 49ers were one of the best teams in the NFC and in the NFL, especially with their defense that was led by Nick Bosa. With the type of season that the 49ers had, the 49ers landed up making it to the NFC Championship game. The 49ers went against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. The 49ers landed up playing better football compared to the Packers. And since the 49ers had home field advantage and the NFC Championship game was in San Francisco, the 49ers definitely had the advantage of winning this game. The 49ers also blew out the Packers in a regular season game. So with the 49ers playing the Packers again, but now in the NFC Championship game, and the 49ers played the Packers in the regular season in San Francisco, and now in the NFC Championship game in San Francisco, the 49ers definitely had the advantage. They had home field advantage in this game. They had home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So there was no reason why the 49ers weren't going to beat the Packers in the NFC Championship game. Jimmy Garoppolo only had to throw the football 8 times, and the 49ers still won this game. But one of the main reasons as to why the 49ers won the NFC Championship game was because of their running back, Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert had a big game against the Packers. He rushed for 220 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. The 49ers were able to score 37 points against the Packers. So that's one of the main reasons as to why the 49ers beat the Packers, was because of running back Raheem Morris having a big game against the Packers. And the Packers just could not handle the amount of points the 49ers scored. The Packers defense was not able to stop that 49ers offense, especially Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris had a big game against the Packers, and it was too much for that Packers defense to handle, and they could not stop Raheem Morris. The 49ers offense played great. They had a big game. They showed up. Raheem Morris was definitely a big surprise to the Packers and to the rest of the NFL, but especially everyone that was watching the NFC Championship game. Raheem Morris just came out of nowhere after being cut by 6 teams. Now playing for the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. He had a big game, and he led the 49ers to play in Super Bowl 54 against the Chiefs. Even though the Packers season came to an end in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers, the Packers also had a great season. They were also one of the best teams in the NFC, led by Aaron Rodgers. With the Packers having a new head coach, the Packers definitely didn't disappoint their fans or the rest of the NFL, even though their season came to an end in the NFC Championship game. With the Packers getting a new head coach, that kind of turned things around for the Packers. And in the first year of the Packers having a new head coach, he led the Packers all the way to the NFC Championship game. So after the Packers made it to the NFC Championship game in the 2019 season, it looks like big things are to come for the Packers in 2020 and going into the future. And hopefully going into the future, we can see Aaron Rodgers win his 2nd Super Bowl and another Super Bowl title. We're going to have to wait and see how the Packers play going into the future. But I want to say congrats to the Packers on having a great 2019 season. I want to say congrats to the 49ers on having a great 2019 season. And the 49ers are Super Bowl 54 bound. So looking at Super Bowl 54, the 49ers go against the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54 on Sunday, February 2nd, down in Miami. Super Bowl 54 between the 49ers and the Chiefs should definitely be a great Super Bowl. It definitely shouldn't disappoint everybody. The 49ers have the best defense, and the Chiefs have one of the best offenses. As we've seen in the past, the defense wins the Super Bowl. The 49ers do have the best defense in the NFL. So we're going to have to wait and see. Defense wins championships. And look at all those Super Bowls from the past. The team that had the best defense in the NFL that season has won the Super Bowl. So we're going to have to wait and see who wins Super Bowl 54. But with the 49ers having one of the best defenses, the 49ers would definitely be a huge favorite to win Super Bowl 54. But right now, the Chiefs definitely have a slight edge of winning Super Bowl 54, especially the way Patrick Mahomes has been playing in the last few weeks, and especially in the playoffs. So we're going to have to wait and see who wins Super Bowl 54. Next week, make sure to tune in to All Sports with Gerardo. I will give you a preview of Super Bowl 54 between the 49ers and the Chiefs, and I will also talk about the 49ers and the Chiefs on how they got to Super Bowl 54, the type of seasons that both teams had, and what are the keys to the 49ers or the Chiefs on winning Super Bowl 54. But going back to championship weekend, both teams that had home field advantage throughout the playoffs won the championship game. The Chiefs had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the AFC. The 49ers had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the NFC. So both home teams in the AFC and in the NFC were able to win the championship game. So it was great to see that the team that had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the AFC and in the NFC won the championship game. And we're going to have to wait and see who wins Super Bowl 54. But with the type of season that the 49ers and the Chiefs have had in 2019, Super Bowl 54 will definitely not disappoint. And we're going to have to wait and see who wins Super Bowl 54. But with my prediction being right, that the Chiefs were going to win the AFC Championship game since they had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the AFC, and the 49ers were going to win the NFC Championship game since the 49ers had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the NFC. And the Chiefs were able to win the AFC Championship game in Kansas City, and the 49ers were able to win the NFC Championship game in San Francisco. We're going to have to wait and see who wins Super Bowl 54. The Chiefs were one of the best teams in the AFC, and the 49ers were the best team in the NFC. So it's definitely going to be a great Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Chiefs. Next week, I will give you my prediction on who I think will win Super Bowl 54. So that's the NFL Championship Weekend final scores and the Super Bowl 54 matchup for the NFL. Right now, I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NBA and NHL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NBA basketball. The class of 2020 first-time NBA Hall of Fame nominees includes Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Chris Bosh. So if we look at the nominees that could be the class of 2020 that could be inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame. This includes Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Chris Bosh. With the type of career that Kobe Bryant had for the Lakers and Tim Duncan had for the Spurs, and the type of career that Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan had in the NBA, there's no doubt that Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan will be first ballot Hall of Famers. Especially that Kobe Bryant played his entire career with the Lakers and Tim Duncan played his entire career with the Spurs. But with the type of career that Kobe Bryant had in the NBA and for the Lakers, and being one of the best players to ever play in the NBA, Kobe Bryant's a first ballot Hall of Famer. With the type of career that Tim Duncan had for the Spurs and in the NBA, Tim Duncan's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Kevin Garnett also had a great career in the NBA, and with the type of career that Kevin Garnett had, he could also be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but there's no doubt that Kevin Garnett will get into the NBA Hall of Fame. We're going to have to wait and see if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer or when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Chris Bosh also had a great career in the NBA, and we're going to have to wait and see if Chris Bosh is a first ballot Hall of Famer or if he gets into the Hall of Fame. Vince Carter moved into 19th on the all-time scoring list. James Harden moved into 7th in all-time three-pointers made. James Harden moved into 18th in all-time free throws made. Russell Westbrook moved into 15th in all-time assists. Russell Westbrook joins LeBron James as the only two players in NBA history with a triple-double against all 30 NBA teams. Carmelo Anthony became the 18th player in NBA history to have 26,000 plus career points. During Kemba Walker's NBA career, he was 0-28 lifetime against LeBron James. During the Celtics-Lakers game on Monday, January 20th, the Celtics beat the Lakers 139-107, and Kemba Walker got his first career win against LeBron James. In Zion Williamson's Pelicans debut, in his NBA debut, and in his regular season debut on Wednesday, January 22nd against the Spurs, in 18 minutes, he had 22 points, 7 rebounds. He was 4 for 4 from the three-point line, and he had 17 straight points in a span of 3.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Zion Williamson's 17 consecutive points in the fourth quarter was the most by a rookie in 20 years. So looking at Zion Williamson's NBA debut, there's no doubt that Zion Williamson will be a great player in the NBA going into the future. With the type of career that Zion Williamson had to start off his basketball career throughout high school and in college at Duke. And it's looking like that career is going to continue on into the NBA. With the performance that Zion Williamson had in his NBA debut, there's no doubt that Zion Williamson will be a great rookie this season, and he could also be a great NBA player going into the future. This is only the beginning of Zion Williamson's NBA career. So we're definitely looking forward to what Zion Williamson can do for the Pelicans and in the NBA going into the future. Zion Williamson made his NBA debut against the Spurs on January 22nd. Since Zion Williamson got injured back in the preseason, and he had to sit out a few weeks, and he had to sit out the beginning of the NBA season and for most of the first half of the NBA regular season. But now that the Pelicans have Zion Williamson, the Pelicans can be a better team now that Zion Williamson is on the court playing for the team. After Zion Williamson came off that injury and he had to sit out the beginning of the NBA regular season and for the last few weeks, it's great to see Zion Williamson playing on the court and playing for the Pelicans and in the NBA. And now we can see Zion Williamson's potential in the NBA this season and going into the future. So it's definitely exciting to see what Zion Williamson is capable of in the NBA this season and going into the future. But after the type of performance that Zion Williamson had in his NBA debut, it looks like Zion Williamson's going to be a great rookie this season, and he's also going to be in competition with J.A. Morant from the Grizzlies. But Zion Williamson is also going to be a great NBA player going into the future, and he's going to be a great player for the Pelicans. Zion Williamson was the first overall pick in the draft, and after the Pelicans traded Anthony Davis, a franchise player, to the Lakers, we're going to have to wait and see how Zion Williamson plays in the Pelicans uniform and if he can replace Anthony Davis's shoes in a Pelicans uniform. But it's going to be hard for any player, including Zion Williamson, to replace Anthony Davis on that Pelicans roster. But Zion Williamson definitely looks like he's going to be a great player and a replacement for Anthony Davis on the Pelicans, and he's also going to be a great player in the NBA going into the future. And after the type of performance that Zion Williamson had coming off that injury in his NBA debut for the Pelicans, we wanted to see more of Zion Williamson after he just kept scoring and scoring and scoring more points, especially in that fourth quarter. Everyone was sad that was watching that Pelicans game, including the Pelicans fans, that they pulled out Zion Williamson towards the middle of the fourth quarter. But because Zion Williamson's just coming off that injury, they do want to limit his minutes as he's just starting to play in NBA games. And as Zion Williamson keeps playing in the next Pelicans games and for the rest of the season, we're going to see more of Zion Williamson, and we're also going to see Zion Williamson play more minutes and play in more Pelicans games. The Pelicans' next game is against the Nuggets, so I'm definitely looking forward, and everybody else is definitely looking forward to Zion Williamson playing for the Pelicans in that Nuggets game and for the rest of the season. This is only the beginning of Zion Williamson this season, so we're going to have to wait and see what he does going into the future. But Zion Williamson definitely looks like he's going to be a great player in the NBA going into the future, and we all definitely want to see more Zion Williamson. And it was sad to see Zion Williamson get pulled out of that Pelicans Spurs game, because the Pelicans were down for most of that game, and the Pelicans started coming back, and they were only down a few points. And who knows, if Zion Williamson would have stayed in the game, the Pelicans probably would have beat the Spurs. We'll never know. But the Pelicans ended up losing to the Spurs by only a few points. And if Zion Williamson would have played the rest of that game, the Pelicans could have won that game against the Spurs. But now that Zion Williamson is playing for the Pelicans should definitely be a better team for the rest of the season now that Zion Williamson is on the court. The Trail Blazers traded Kent Bazemore, Anthony Tolliver, and 2 future second-round draft picks to the Kings in exchange for Trevor Ariza, William Gabriel, and Caleb Swinton. Michael Porter Jr. joined Dikembe Mutombo as the only 2 Nuggets rookies on the road with 20-plus points, 14-plus boards, and 4-plus assists. So right now I'm going to update you with the current schedule for the Nuggets. I'm going to tell you every team the Nuggets went up against this past week and the final scores of those games. And I'm also going to tell you who the Nuggets go up against in the next week. To start off, last week the Nuggets went against the Warriors, and the Nuggets won a close game against the Warriors in overtime, 134-131. The Nuggets went against the Pacers, and the Pacers beat the Nuggets 115-107. The Nuggets went against the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves 107-100. And the Nuggets went against the Rockets, and the Rockets beat the Nuggets 121-105. This week, the Nuggets go against the Pelicans, the Rockets again here at the Pepsi Center in Denver, and the Grizzlies. So that's the current schedule for the Nuggets, for the teams the Nuggets went up against this past week and the final scores of those games, and that's also who the Nuggets go up against in the next week. In the Week 13 NBA Power Rankings, the current top 10 NBA basketball teams are the Bucks, Lakers, Celtics, Heat, Clippers, Jazz, Rockets, Nuggets, Raptors, and Mavericks. Moving on now to NHL hockey. Right now I'm going to update you with the current schedule for the Avalanche. I'm going to tell you every team the Avalanche went up against this past week and the final scores of those games. And I'm also going to tell you who the Avalanche go up against in the next week. To start off, last week the Avalanche went against the Sharks, and the Avalanche beat the Sharks 4-0. The Avalanche went against the Blues, and the Avalanche beat the Blues 5-3. And the Avalanche went against the Red Wings, and the Avalanche beat the Red Wings 6-3. This week, the Avalanche go against the Flyers and the Sabres. So that's the current schedule for the Avalanche, for the teams the Avalanche went up against this past week and the final scores of those games. And that's also who the Avalanche go up against in the next week. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about college football, college basketball, and boxing. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to college football. Dealers Moss has declared for the 2020 NFL Draft. Isaiah Simmons has declared for the 2020 NFL Draft. Moving on now to college basketball. In the college basketball AP Top 10 poll, the current top 10 college basketball teams are Gonzaga, Ohio State, Louisville, Duke, Kansas, Oregon, Baylor, Auburn, Memphis, and Villanova. Moving on now to boxing. Conor McGregor beat Cowboy Dillon via TKO in 40 seconds at the UFC 246. Conor McGregor had a victorious return to the octagon with a first round TKO win over Donald Cowboy Cerrone to close out the UFC 246 in Las Vegas last Saturday. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the end of the show. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to the show. What to watch for this week in sports. The NFC versus the AFC in the 2020 NFL Pro Bowl on Sunday, January 26 in Orlando. NFL football, college basketball, the Nuggets, NBA basketball, the Avalanche, NHL hockey. Moving on now, on the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, college football, and college basketball. I hope you all have a great weekend. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports through Met Radio here on mymetmedia.com. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.